Hello, and welcome to Sunday School, brought to you by Beaumont Presbyterian Church, located in Beaumont, California. My name is Pastor Fernando, and I am glad to welcome you here to join us today. For those of you who were with us last week, you know that we are continuing in the parables. Parables are stories, normally very short, that have a moral or ethical principle that could be taught. Jesus often used parables when teaching the disciples and the different people who he spoke to while he was here on earth. Let's take a look into our next parable for this week. The parable for today comes from the book of Luke, chapter 14, verses 16 through 24, and is commonly referred to as the parable of the feast or banquet. The Bible tells us it is important to take care of anyone who is poor or weak or helpless. We must show them God's love and care for them in any way we can. One day, Jesus was invited to have a meal at the home of an important Pharisee. Lots of rich people were there, watching Jesus and listening to him. He told this story to the Pharisee. A certain man prepared a great feast. When everything was ready, he sent his servant to invite his friends to come. But everyone who was invited made excuses. The first person said, "I cannot come because I have bought a piece of land and I need to go see it." The next person who was invited to the feast replied, "I have bought 5 oxen and I need to see if they work as a team plowing, so I cannot come." Another person who was invited said that he couldn't come to the feast because he had just gotten married. People were just too busy. The man was disappointed and said, "Go into the streets and lanes of the city and invite the poor, those with disabilities, the blind, and all people of that sort to my feast. Encourage them all to come. There is plenty of room and plenty of food for everyone. Take care of the poor and the helpless in this world, and you will be blessed." With this parable, we can learn many lessons. It is easy to see that in this story, the man had created a place and was having a big party. When we go through scriptures, we often hear the term that the Israelites, or the Hebrew or Jewish people, were God's chosen people. And sometimes that makes us think, I remember looking back when I was younger thinking, well, I'm none of those things, so I'm not chosen to be with God? And this is a concept that was very frustrating for me. However, the purpose of this parable is to show that although the Hebrew nation was the nation that was chosen for the bloodline of when God would send his son, he did open all opportunities of blessings, freedom, and a relationship to him to all people. Notice how in the parable it stated to go to those who were sick, those who had disabilities, blind, and all things of that sort. During the time of Jesus, it was very common that if you had some sort of injury or disability, people didn't think very highly of you. And that in and of itself is no reason to think less of anyone. No matter how rich, poor, what injuries or non-injuries you might have, seen or unseen. You still hold the same amount of worth and value in the eyes of God. So as we think back and go through our next few days, I want you to take a time and think. Am I treating everyone as though they are guests in the house of the Lord? Or am I sitting like those who were called and invited and saying, oh, I'm just too busy for God right now? Remember, these are the two key factors you can learn. In everything we do have busy lives, and there's things that come up. But do not neglect to spend your time with God. We look at the excuses that were made, like, if you just got married or were married recently, there's no reason why a husband and wife or someone who's married together can't go to a party. That happens all the time. Or if you had just bought some animals, certainly it doesn't take hours upon hours to see if your animals know how to pull a plow. And these individuals made excuses because it's just not what they wanted to do at the moment. So remember, as you go through, are you making any excuses to spend time with God? And also remember, are you being welcoming to all to let them know that they too are all invited? Stir in me a passion that this heart cannot explain. I've come to worship you, and stir in me a fire that the world cannot contain. I've come to worship you, so hold me, break me, mold me, and make me more and more like you. I've come to worship you, to love you, fear you, draw me ever near you as I worship you. I've come to worship you. Stir in me a passion that this heart cannot explain. I've come to worship you, and stir in me a fire that this world cannot contain. I've come to worship you, so hold me, break me, mold me, and make me more and more like you. I've come to worship you, to love you, fear you, draw me ever near you as I worship you. I've come to worship you. Lord, hold me, break me, mold me, and make me more and more like you. I've come to worship you, to love you, fear you, draw me ever near you as I worship you. I've come to worship you, to love you, fear you, draw me ever near you as I worship you. I've come to worship you. Before we go, just like always, I'd like to end with what we call the five-finger prayer. With your thumb, you pray for family and friends. Your next finger to remind you to pray for leaders and teachers. With the middle finger for people with power. Your ring finger for the weak. And last but not least, with your pinky for yourself. Would you pray with me now? God, thank you for my friends and family. Protect them and give them joy. Heal those who are sick or have a hard time. God, thank you for my leaders and teachers who point the way for me to go. Give them rest and clear minds. Thank you for the people with power. Give the police, government, and military wisdom, strength, and open their hearts. God, strengthen those who feel weak, those who are struggling in need. Help me to see them and offer them help where I am able. And God, help me to learn your ways. Surround me with good friends and strengthen me in mind, body, and spirit. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye now. Lord, hold